If you've been noticing many companies investing a lot of resources into their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, yet they claim they're not making the progress that they are looking to make, or straight up say their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are failing or very underperforming, this discussion might shed a little bit of light as to why it might be. So specifically, I will be diving into some top reasons as to why companies fail at their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. One of the top reasons why companies fail at their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts is because they don't understand the benefits, so they don't end up prioritizing it. Plain and simple. If you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, and if you're not understanding how what you're doing is going to lead to whatever benefit, you're not going to prioritize it because you're not going to understand what is the end goal and how is that going to show up in the company or organization or whatever it might be. A really good case of this, and this is more common than many companies would like to admit, is that diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts were not their priority or were not even discussed whatsoever until a couple of years ago. When they dove in, they did what they think needs to be done. They don't end up understanding the business case, the people case, which made them deprioritize it, put them in the back burner. So there are some resources going for it, but not only is the effort not getting the resources that it actually deserves, they don't know how to track the efforts. They don't know what they're looking to get from the efforts. If they were fully sold on the benefits, they fully understood it, they are going to know how it's going to show up in the company, and then they are also going to prioritize it accordingly. Another reason why companies fail when it comes to their diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts is misaligned efforts. So let's do a real life example before diving into how this shows up in many companies. When you are looking to run a marathon, the efforts are going to be something like this. I'm going to run half a mile on the first day, then I'm going to run 3/4 mile on the second day, take a break on the next day, so that you can kind of start gearing things up, or maybe you're getting new shoes or whatever it might be. So a lot of these efforts are leading to one specific goal in a very structured manner. Now, when we're applying that to the company's approach of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, they don't do that. A classic example is how companies say they want more representation of talented, diverse backgrounds within their senior leadership position. When you're looking at the efforts that they're doing, it is nowhere related to creating more representation of senior leaders in their leadership. There isn't anything around leadership development for marginalized groups. There isn't anything about changing up their talent acquisition process. The efforts are very misaligned. Like maybe they're doing more social events, or maybe they're doing cultural events, or they bring in a speaker to talk about this one special day, which is awesome. These efforts are not wrong, but it doesn't lead directly to the goal. Now, why that happens is a completely different discussion, but for now, we gotta make sure that if you want to see results for your diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, it needs to relate to the goal that you're looking to create within the company, period. We're gonna leave it at that. Another reason why companies fail at diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts is delayed implementation from managers. So this happens for companies who have terrific strategic roadmap and they brought in all the consultants. Maybe they have a diversity, equity, inclusion team, but the functional managers that are not in human resources function or that are directly touching the diversity, equity, and inclusion function, the implementation gets very delayed. Because we have to consider the fact that these functional managers, they have their own teams to run, just like you are, just like you and everyone else. They are very busy and they have a lot on their plate. which is fine. So adding in this initiative is going to create a lot of resistance, and they are going to backburner it. They are not going to understand why they're doing it and how it is going to help with all the workload that they're doing right now. And if managers are not bought in to diversity, equity, inclusion efforts and implementation of them for any reason, then there's going to be delayed progress because everyone needs to be in this together. So that is another reason why diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts fail for so many companies. Another reason why companies tend to fail at diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts is because they avoid the real opportunity for improvement. As in, they know what the problem is, they know the root of the problem, but they are not structuring the efforts to be able to fix the problem. They end up working on the surface level problems, which, yes, it helps to move the needle a little bit, but it doesn't make as big of an effort as getting to the root of the problem. And yes, getting to the root of the problem, it does feel like a lot. But if you want to make real progress, and it needs to be done, this is not going to be an overnight thing, just like any other initiatives while running the company. Today's discussion, we discussed some of the top reasons why diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts fail for so many companies, which were around they're not understanding the benefits, therefore they end up deprioritizing it. Efforts are misaligned. Managers are not bought in and they delay the implementation, and they are not getting to root of the problem and end up fixing. And the other reason being they avoid the real problem and they end up fixing on some of these surface level problems that does move the needle, but it doesn't make as big of an impact towards their overall roadmap and the goal. So I hope this discussion was helpful for you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will chat next time.